So I was rock bottom, 20 years old, sleeping in the garage and paying $1,000 a month for coaching I did not have. So I put it on my credit card. My first 6 months in the business, it was so freaking brutal. And I was absolutely ready to quit real estate.
By 21, he was a millionaire. By 31, he had survived 2 different cancers.
And the email said, I noticed there's a lump on Tarek's neck. Turns out I had stage 3 thyroid cancer. I couldn't afford lunch. I was going to Subway every day, splitting $5 footlongs, stealing lemonade out of water cups, and I lost everything and realized I'm not. Literally 2 weeks later, I get a contract to do 13 episodes on HGTV. I don't know how to flip house. I don't have any money.
He flipped over 1,000 homes, built a multi-million-dollar brand, and pitched a TV show to Hollywood from a Gmail contact form. This isn't a story about houses. It's a story about resilience, about making 50 phone calls a day when you can't afford lunch, about hearing no from everyone until the only voice left to believe is your own.
We go to the auction. We end up buying our very first flip. We got so lucky we got it in under 60 days, made a check for $34,000.
This is Tarek El Moussa, and this conversation will redefine what you think is possible when you've got nothing left to lose.
You know, what are some common mistakes you see them make? How do you try to transfer all this wisdom that you've acquired over the last 15 years?
It is literally impossible to find success if you're digging 100 holes that are 1 inch deep versus one hole 100 inches deep. Pick what it is, face your fear, move on to the next. And what happens is every time you face your fears or every time you go through pain until one day you feel like you're unstoppable and bulletproof.
Tarek, I'm super excited to get to sit down with you to record this podcast. I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years, and I'm lucky to call you a friend. And I just want to have an authentic conversation, right? I think so much of what we see today in social media, on television, is this like produced, edited version. And I don't think people appreciate the ups and downs. I was actually just talking to somebody and they were talking about an overnight success is always like a 10-year story.
Yep.
And most people who are on their come up should also see that as an opportunity because, most people don't hear about your failures. And if you never succeed, it's who cares? Because no one saw the failure. So I probably want to spend more of the conversation on the come up, on the parts that aren't on the TV show.
The hard parts,
right? The parts that actually made you who you are today.
The parts you have to get through if you want to make it.
So if you just want to just kick us off at whatever part of the origin story you would think would be most helpful for folks to get a context of who you are and how you got here.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about my story is every single part of my story was freaking difficult. I mean, from selling houses was difficult, flipping houses difficult, getting on TV was difficult, surviving the Great Recession was difficult. But I actually started in real estate at 19 years old. I was selling Cutco kitchen knives and I lost my sales book. So one day I found myself with no more lead book and not knowing what to do. I fell into real estate sales. So I was in a parking lot at an ATM. I looked over and I saw a sign, said Wise Old Owl Real Estate School. I said, you know what? If I can sell knives, I can sell houses. So like on a whim, I walked across the parking lot, signed up for real estate. And here's what most people don't know. My first 6 months in the business, it was so freaking brutal. I was young.
So how old were you when you passed the test?
I was 20 years old when I got started. I bought a 1985 baby blue Buick Park Avenue. I traded in my monster truck. I went to JCPenney, bought some suits, and I was a real estate agent. And I was doing what everybody else did. I was doing floor time, waiting for people to call in, or I was doing open houses and nobody was showing up, and redoing my brand and my business cards. And for 6 months, I honestly showed a bunch of buyers properties that never bought, that weren't qualified, that if they were, they bought with someone else. And I was absolutely ready to quit real estate. Like I was done. And at 20 years old, I heard these 2 ladies in my office talking about how dumb realtors were for going to this Mike Ferry guy's training event because it's a scam and he wants to charge you to tell you what to do so you can get more listings. And I had a moment. I'm like, well, wait a minute, because I was lost. I said, you're telling me I could pay someone that will tell me what to do and I can go do it and it might work? So I was a dumb kid. So, of course, I went to the free event. And I don't know if you've seen Mike Ferry speak. He's a genius. Mike Ferry convinced me I was going to be the richest son of a bitch alive, the most successful realtor. He convinced me like I was unstoppable. So at the end of this event, I ended up signing up for one-on-one coaching. And at the time in 2003, it was $1,000 a month, which is like $1 million today with inflation, as you know. So, and then it's funny. I actually handed Mike Ferry a ripped piece of paper that day. I said, hi, my name is Tarek El Moussa. You don't know who I am today, but one day you will. So sign up for the coaching, put it on my credit card. And just so you understand where I was with my life, 20 years old, broke up with my girlfriend, parents got divorced. I couldn't afford an apartment, called my mom, said, can I move home? She rented out my bedroom because she couldn't afford the house without it. I moved into the garage. So literally hit the clicker, garage door opened, I moved the spray paint, I moved the dirt bike, and I rolled a cot into the middle of the garage. So I was rock bottom, 20 years old, sleeping in the garage and paying $1,000 a month for coaching I did not have. So I put it on my credit card. And here's the deal I made with myself. And there's so many agents out there who are struggling. And this is a very important part of my story because I'm a big believer that any real estate agent can completely transform their career in 90 days. So what I did was what I like to call the 90-day sprint. So I told myself, I'm going to work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for 90 days, and I'm going to do nothing but call expired listings. And I was so freaking bad. This is so freaking bad. I remember sitting in my cubicle with the Mike Ferry script. Hi, Leo, I'm sure you figured out your home's come up on our computer as an expired listing, but I butchered it, right? But something wild happened. I landed an appointment my first week, and it turned out to be one of the most expensive listings in Orange County, California. So I land this expired listing appointment, and of course, I have no idea how to go on a listing appointment, so then I run to the sales board. I look at the board, and I say, well, who's getting listings? I look on the board, it says Ham. There's this guy, Richard Ham. I go to Richard. I said, hey, Richard, I got this expired listing. You want to go? He goes, sure. He barely spoke any English, by the way. His story is incredible. He was a newer agent that was trying to put his daughter through UCLA. So out of nowhere, he became number one because he was so aggressive with the sellers. So we ended up leaving this expired listing with a 6% commission. We're taking 3.5%, and it was the first one we ever took. And over the next 90 days, I ended up getting expired after expired after expired, and I had no idea how to do them on my own. So I take Richard with me, and I brought in $300,000 in commissions in a 90-day period. And I brought Richard, so I got to keep half. So I ended up making about, I think, $120,000 to $150,000 in a 90-day period when I was 20 years old, and moved from that garage to $1 million house. And here's the secret. You are never going to convince an expired listing to sell their house if they don't want to sell their house. You're never going to convince someone to do something they don't want to do. My secret was this. I wasn't allowed to go home until I had 50 contacts, 50 conversations. So most people, they get beat up on these phone calls by these expired listings because it's tough, right? Well, if it's 8:15 at night and I'm on contact 49 and I call and it's like, hi, this is Tarek with EXP. And they're like, Tarek, go screw yourself. And they hang up on me. I'm literally jumping for joy and celebrating because I had one rule. I wasn't allowed to go home until I had 50 contacts. I wasn't trying to make money. I wasn't trying to get listing. 50 conversations. And that one goal completely transformed my life.
You know, I like that because that's controllable, right? And I tell people all the time, like, you can't control results, but you can control activity. And if you can make a game of it, and I always teach folks, it's like, qualification is the name of the game.
Yep.
Ready, will, and enable. So you have this really awesome start. And your story, my story, almost identical, same age, same time frame. What did the downturn do to that? And so you probably took off.
Oh, man.
Tell me how it was going, and then where life showed.
Yeah. So now I'm 21 years old. I'm living in this almost $1 million home in Orange County, California. My neighbors think I'm a drug dealer. I'm driving big Mercedes and BMWs, king of the world, in my early 20s. And I was doing well 2003, 2004, 2005. And I noticed something interesting in the summer of 2006. In the summer of 2006, my listings were just sitting. And
I'm smiling because it happened like the same thing. Like it was June of 06.
June of 06. Most stopped. Most of the people think the Great Recession started in 2008. Wrong. It started summer of 2006. And I'll never forget, inventory in Orange County, California spiked 84%. And I remember telling everyone I knew, hey, something's going on with real estate. I think the market's going to turn. I think prices are going to go down. And I remember everyone telling me I was just some stupid kid that didn't know what he was talking about. So I actually was forced to sell 3 out of my 4 properties because my listings weren't selling and I was making no money. So I ended up selling my very last property with the exception of one. It closed escrow December of 2006. It was a rental property in North Carolina, and I sold my house in Orange County, California. And March of 2007, subprime market crashed. So I was high on life for years, making all this money, $1 million house. By mid-2007, I had sold the house. I had sold the cars. I had moved into a tiny little apartment with a roommate. I couldn't afford lunch. I was going to Subway every day, splitting $5 footlongs, stealing lemonade out of water cups. And talk about rock bottom. Didn't matter what I did, I could not make money. I would go on expired listings. Sellers wouldn't reduce the prices. And I struggled. And I almost, honestly, and then 2007, to make money on the side, I tried to get a job as a valet parker. They said I had no experience. And I said, that's kind of bullshit. I used to deliver pizza, So, but I fought through it. And then I kept going after expired listings. Then in late 2009, mid 2009, I said, you know what? I'm going to start going after notice of defaults. Maybe I can do short sales. So I took that same energy, and instead of cold calling expireds, I started cold calling notice of defaults, and I started making money again. And that's when I started doing short sales. So then I do this one short sale. I had a first lien, a second lien, a third lien, an HOA lien, an IRS lien. There was a lien on the lien because of a lien. Like, this thing was such a nightmare. And I worked 11 months. And it was the heyday back then. There was no like real rules or real management with short sales. It was a disaster. And I got a check for $7,000. And I remember the guy I sold it to, he painted the house. He hired a gardener, put it back for sale, sold it. He made $130,000.
That's a big
aha moment. That was the exact moment I realized, like, I'm on the wrong side of the real estate equation. So I never forget, I'm sitting in my car. I'm in Corona, California. And back then it was like 110 degrees outside. I was door knocking. I was drenched in sweat. It was a nightmare. And I said, I'm going to flip houses. So in my car, pulled out my phone, started calling everyone I knew. Every single person I knew said I was dumb, I was young, it's not going to work, it's too speculative, it's too risky. And every time someone told me it wasn't going to work, I got more and more motivated.
And what were you calling them to ask or say?
There's a lot of pre-foreclosures and short sales. I see a big opportunity where we can buy them low, fix them, and sell them high. They said I was crazy.
Got it.
So I finally had the courage to call the only person I knew that was a millionaire, and his name was Pete DeBest. And before I finished my sentence, hey, you want to flip houses? He goes, yeah, I'll flip a house with you. If you find the house, I'll put up the money. I couldn't believe it. So 4 days later, we go to the auction. We end up buying our very first flip. We got so lucky we got it because all we brought was $115,000. We got it for exactly $115,000. I was the realtor, the investor, the contractor. I'm really unhandy. I did everything wrong. Burned myself with acid, painted the baseboards to the floors, electrocuted myself. But you know what I did right? I worked my ass off, and I got the thing done start to finish, remodeled, closed with the buyer in under 60 days, made a check for $34,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And after the Great Recession, to make 34 grand on one check again, it was a miracle. But here's the part people don't know. The same week that I had bought that condo at the auction, I went to a Mike Ferry Superstar Retreat, the big one in Las Vegas with like 5,000 people. And my friend was with Coldwell Banker, and 2 seats opened up in the very front row. So he invited us to the very front, where normally you have to be a VIP or you have to pay.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there, and at the break, all these other VIPs come up to me and my ex-wife at the time, because we were young, dressed sharp. And it was all of my idols that I always see on stage talking about how they make $1 million a year or 800 grand a year. So one of these guys comes up, and I saw him on stage before, how he made 800 grand a year. And I start talking to him. He's like, well, I have this local TV show in Palm Springs. And then like I go to the grocery store and people recognize me. I'm like, okay, well, what does that do? He goes, well, then they do business with me. And then it hit me. I'm like, oh, so you're using TV as your farm instead of like flyers. He goes, yeah. And I'm like, oh man, that's so genius. Leave Las Vegas. And the next night, it's like 10 o'clock at night. My ex-wife, Christina, goes, are you coming to bed? I said, no, just like this. This is really how it happened. I said, no, I'm gonna get us a TV show. And she laughed at me because I had all these crazy ideas when I was young, still do. And she goes, a TV show about what? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, give me a second. And maybe 3 seconds passed. I said, well, we just bought our first house to flip. Why don't we flip houses on TV? Call it flip or flop. Flip if we make it, flop if we don't. She said, you're crazy. And she went to bed. So I literally went on the internet. I typed Hollywood production companies. Websites came up. I hit the contact form, pitched my idea, and I got a response the next day. It said, send us a home video. And that was the kickoff to ultimately getting the HGTV show.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So here's the wild part of the story. They loved the home video. So then we had a professional shoot. It's called a sizzle. We shot the sizzle. And a sizzle is like a 5-minute teaser episode to show networks to see if they like it. Nobody liked it. Nobody wanted it. So 10 months later, I get a random call. I'm golfing. I'm on a golf course in Yorba Linda. It's a production company saying HGTV wants to do a pilot. I was so excited. We shot the pilot. And at the end, they said the odds of getting picked up, very low. If you do get picked up, it's going to be a long time. Literally 2 weeks later, I get a contract to do 13 episodes on HGTV in 10 months, which is exciting, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 problems. 1, Leo, I don't know how to flip houses. 2, I don't have any money. So I'm like, well, shit, what did I sign up for? Because the pilot episode was the 3rd house I'd ever done. Now they want 13 in 10 months. So I called my lawyer and I said, well, what's the worst that can happen? He goes, they could sue you. And I said, they can have it. I signed the sucker twice. And that's how I ended up on Flip or Flop. And then to find the houses, I would drive every night from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. by all the homes going to auction the next day to see if they were vacant or not. So if they were vacant, I would try to bid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a grind. I didn't sleep the first year.
And see, that's the stories I like to tell, because most people don't appreciate the ups and downs. And like to pivot the conversation, one of the crazy things that I got to learn when looking you up in conversations, there was a viewer that noticed a lump, and that kind of took a very interesting turn for your life. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, my life has definitely been a series of ups and downs. Going into season 2 of Flip or Flop, I remember getting an eerie email from my production company saying, they received an email from the network, and the email said, I'm a registered nurse from Texas. I noticed there's a lump on Tarek's neck. This is not a joke. He needs to get it checked out. I had gone to my primary doctor a few times for this, and they gave me nose spray and allergy medicine. So this time I said, I'm going to go to a different doctor. They did a biopsy, which means they stuck a needle in my neck, took some cells, and it came back as atypical, meaning it could or could not be cancer. I went in for exploratory surgery, which means they were just going to open me up to see what's going on. I woke up 5 hours later, my entire family looking down on me crying. Turns out I had stage 3 thyroid cancer. They removed my entire thyroid, plus had spread to my lymph nodes. So they removed my lymph nodes. And because of that, I ended up looking through old medical records, and we found an irregular testicle exam from the year before with no referrals and nothing said. So honestly, almost as a joke, dude, like we said, we should go get that checked, kind of almost like a joke. And I'll never forget this day. I was at my thyroid cancer appointment, and last minute they had an opening at the ultrasound down the hall. So I go down the hall for the ultrasound, and the technician was a younger guy. It's an uncomfortable thing. So like we're chatting, he's talkative like me. I talk a lot. And then he got real quiet on me. And then I was like, hey, what's going on? He's like, oh, no, nothing. I'm like, what do you mean nothing? Like, like I can feel your energy, bro. Like,
You're the guy I don't want. Do it.
Yeah. He goes, I'm not a doctor. I said, I know you're not a doctor, but what do you see? And then he goes, are you in pain? And I'm like, then he goes, if you're in pain, you should go to the emergency room. It's right down the hall. And he points and he looks right in the eyes. You should go to the emergency room. I knew something was wrong. 20 minutes later, I found out I had testicular cancer. So now I'm 31, 2 different cancers, thinking I'm going to die. I'm a young father. The network calls me saying, we understand the show's done. No problem. Like, we understand. My response was, the show's not done. You are going to film my ass rolling into the surgery, and I'm going to film until the end. And it was really important to me that I didn't quit, to prove to myself and my family that nothing would stop me from building what I was building. And I'm most proud to say that the year that I had the surgeries and I fought the 2 cancers and I was in hospitals, I quadrupled the size of my house flipping business.
So that was all recorded and documented and everything.
Yeah, and if you watch early seasons of the show, you actually see me gain 60 pounds on camera. My skin was yellow. It was really tough too, being in front of the world like that, with getting nasty messages about how ugly and fat I am and gross I am. But you got to have thick skin in life. You really
have. So that, I've just had a question. Like, it feels like you lived a big portion of your life in the public eye now.
Yeah.
How have you balanced that entertainment aspect of what is for television, and then also, like, raising your kids, being married, meeting Heather, like all of it has been in the public eye. How do you balance that from what do you share publicly with what is for you guys?
Honestly, I'm just kind of am who I am. I stay in my lane. I'm honest. I'm real. Like, what people see of me, that's who I am. What they see on TV, what they see on social media, and balance, there's not really balance. When you're out there, you're out there. And it's not like one of those things where I can show the world some things and not some other things, because, I've been on TV 15 years. I've had over 100 million viewers, and it's like, I'm not going to trick 100 million people, So it's important to be authentic and organic.
That's such an interesting part of the journey that I don't think most people can.
And humble, humility. Yeah, no, that's truth. Like, honestly, the best things that have ever happened to me is all my hardships. There were times in my life when I was an arrogant prick because I was young and I was successful and I thought I had made it, and I grew up in a rough area and I thought I was hot shit, and then I lost everything and realized I'm not. But those humbling lessons is what builds character.
And in some of, the shows like Flipping 101 and the other ones you've mentored aspiring investors. What are some common mistakes you see them make, and how do you try to transfer all this wisdom that you've acquired over the last 15 years?
Yeah, so I see newer investors making the same mistakes that most newer real estate agents made. They're trying to do too many things. It is literally impossible to find success if you're digging 100 holes that are 1 inch deep versus one hole 100 inches deep. So I always say, pick one thing and go all in on that one thing. So if you're a real estate agent and you like expired listings, go all in on expired listings. If you're a real estate agent and honestly you only love open houses, go all in on open houses. And then once you perfect that, then you move on to the next thing, because it's a very confusing industry. There are so many ways to get deals and flip houses and buy houses and find listings, right? There's so many that it's confusing. So I think it's very important for new investors and real estate agents to simplify the process. And for new investors, here's what I like to say. With all the noise out there, there's only 2 things you need to remember. If you want to flip houses and you want to find deals, you have to either talk to 1, people that own houses, or 2, people that sell houses. And if you forget all the noise, all the YouTube, all the programs, all the bullshit, and remember every single day you need to talk to people that own houses or sell houses, you will be successful.
So beyond television, you've been pretty involved in educational programs for real estate. What motivates you to teach others to do what you've done, and what impact do you want to have on people?
Simple. Real estate changed my life. It's given me a life I never knew was available to me. And I know there are so many people out there today that want more. They just have no idea how to get there. And I am so freaking motivated to show the ones who really, really want it how to get it. Like, I love giving back. I love teaching. There is nothing like watching someone else win.
And, the part that's interesting too with the healthy relationship you have with your ex-wife, Christina, and then your relationship and now married to Heather in a very public way. How do you navigate the dynamics of a blended family and all the public scrutiny that comes with it?
I do exactly what the women say. Yeah, I'm just kidding. It's an interesting dynamic. And, Heather's such a rock star. I absolutely love working with her, filming with her, raising the kids with her. And since day one, she came into my family. She treated the kids as her own. She was respectful with my ex-wife. And, there were some ups and downs like any relationship. But it was such an amazing thing to have the 3 of us on camera filming the flip off. And it brought all of us closer together. It brought them closer together. It was great for the kids. And there's been such growth over the last 2 years because of us working together that we're doing the best we've ever done.
No, I watched the series and seeing your mom and mother-in-law and being guest judges. That was fun. That's super cool. And for some kid who sees you, who's probably overcoming a rough childhood, I know you've mentioned in some of your books some of the stuff you've overcome, and how did that shape you?
Yeah, I mean, my childhood was pretty rough. I was a very hyper kid, suffered with real bad ADHD. I was always in trouble. I had some learning disabilities. I was told I was bad. I was told I was wrong, And when you're told that all the time, at some point you start believing it, right? So I think it's important just to never stop believing in yourself and just going for broke every single day.
And looking ahead, what do you see for your career aspirations over the next decade, whether it's personal, business, and what other chapters are in the Tarek book we haven't seen yet?
That is such a great question. So I've spent the last 20 years in the real estate world primarily focused on flipping houses and on TV. 20 years later, looking back, I am so excited and so motivated about one thing: giving back and being a part of reforming the real estate industry. And not for the flippers, not for the realtors, not for the loan officers. I'm very excited to be the person to help homeowners. I want to help buyers. I want to help sellers. I want to help homeowners. I want people to understand how transactions work. I want them to never be taken advantage of. So I'm very excited to really get out there and start working with honestly buyers and sellers again.
Awesome. And what do you think is going to be the best format for that? I know you've shared some stuff with me, and obviously if whatever you're comfortable sharing, but I think one of the lessons that sellers can get from you is really understanding the process, whether it's getting the property ready for sale, right? Maximizing the comps based on the repairs. Talk me through some of your thought processes as to what, if every seller in America could listen to you right now, what would you tell them?
Man, well, I've bought, fixed, and sold 1,000 of my own properties, and I know how important it is. And most sellers don't realize if they invest, 10 grand, 12 grand, sometimes they can make an extra 40 or 50. Right? So that's where the magic is. So if anyone out there wants to sell a house, you don't just list the house. The most important step before listing a house is to prep it and improve it and get it sale ready. And if someone takes the time to prep, improve, and get it sale ready, not remodel the kitchen, just get it ready, they're going to sell for more money, they're going to sell for faster, and they're going to be way happier.
So as I said, I've gotten to know you, and I've seen you invent a new concept, a new show. And I love to understand the mindset of, I won't disclose the stuff you've shared with me, but like some of the shows that you're dreaming up are so cool and out of the box. And it goes from an idea to a pitch to like on Max with the 5th most watched TV in the world right now inside of that one distribution network. What's the mindset that gets you to create like that?
That's a great question. So, and this is for everybody out there. When I was younger, I was just like everybody else, which means all day I'm absorbing negative energy. This won't work. That won't work. Taking bad advice from people that don't know what they're talking about. Taking bad advice from people that have never done anything. And then as more time went on and I got older, I would just try pushing the envelope a little bit more. Maybe I can sell knives. Maybe I can get expired listings. Maybe I can flip houses. And every time I would prove to myself, well, wait a minute. Everybody said I couldn't do this and I can do it. And then one day I realized in my 20s that we can literally do anything. And then I realized, why have I always cared what other people think of me? Like I really had that moment because the fact that I cared about what other people thought of me had prevented me from doing all the things and knocking on the doors and making the calls, when the truth is we're all going to die one day and none of this matters. So this is our one, there's no redo. This is our one shot. So am I going to be scared to go pitch a TV show? No. Am I going to be scared to go try to flip a house? No. Am I going to be scared to buy an apartment building? No. Why? What's the alternative? Doing nothing and then dying. So fear, everybody has it, and you're never going to get past your fears unless you face them. And I'm a big believer in this. You want to face your fears one at a time, just like real estate. So pick what it is, face your fear, move on to the next. And what happens is every time you face your fears, or every time you go through pain, or every time you attempt to do something new and you fail and you eventually learn, you get stronger. Your skin gets thicker until one day you feel like you're unstoppable and bulletproof. And that's where I'm at today. From all the hard years and all the pain, I don't feel like there's anything that can stop me.
So I think you're best known for flipping houses. Yeah, I think that's just a one-dimensional, since I know some of like your capital businesses and then the other things you've set up. Why don't you share what your investment portfolio or strategies look like?
Okay, so yeah, most people know me as the house flipper, from TV. And you know what the funny thing is? The one lesson I've learned about flipping houses, don't flip houses. Keep the damn houses because they keep going up eventually, right? But flipping houses, it made the money I needed to live and survive. It made the money to reinvest into real estate rentals. It gave me the opportunity to be on TV. But, over the last 15 years, I flipped over 1,000 houses. When it comes to rental properties, I have about 200 houses spread around the country.
Single family?
Single family houses, about 200, a couple thousand apartment buildings. We have a 376 unit complex in Northwest Arkansas, 405 units in Houston, Texas. We have 210 units in Orlando. We just built 625 units in Surprise, Arizona. And these are all with my company, TEM Capital. So what I love about that is people have seen me on TV so long flipping houses and buying real estate. So I created TEM Capital. So now like my friends, my families, my viewers, my fans, they can actually invest in the deals with me. So when I'm buying these apartment buildings or self-storage facilities, I'm actually buying them with my fans, which is really, really cool. And then what I'm most excited about today is the triple equity fund that I'm launching next week. And what we're doing is the same thing I've been doing for 15 years. So we're finding distressed off-market houses, but instead of fixing them up and flipping them, we're fixing them up adding units and keeping them as rentals. And that's because of the ADU laws in California. So there's a huge opportunity right now for people to invest in California real estate.
That's awesome. And we'll make sure to link all of the appropriate links to the podcast so people can find that.
Yeah, awesome.
Anything else we're missing?
I don't know. You know, the truth is I think about this industry, I think about this business, and I've literally spent years in real estate offices watching real estate agents wasting their life away. I don't know how else to say it. I remember being in my 20s, just watching the same people come in every day, wearing their suits, getting their coffee, remaking their flyers, bullshitting around the office, never doing much, moping around, going home defeated. And if they only knew, if they treated their real estate business like they treated a high school test, they would be more successful than they ever thought. And I talk about high school a lot, actually. For me, high school was so freaking challenging. I remember staying up till midnight, 1 a.m., trying to get ready for a stupid test so I can get a B. You know what I mean? And then you become an adult and no one's making you do anything, right? Imagine if every real estate agent treated their business like it was a high school final. Do you think they would make more money and get more deals or not? 100% yes, because for most people, the hardest they've ever worked in their life was in high school or was in college. But then I also find a problem with that. Here's why. People work so hard, they'll get straight A's and perfect SATs to graduate college. They get their diploma, then they think, oh, I made it. Wrong. That's when it's starting. So that effort you put in to get the 4.0 GPA and get your perfect SATs, you need to take that same tenacity, that same energy, and put it towards the business, where I see people getting their degree and slowing down. Another thing I'm not a fan of is grades in school. Like, one of the big things that held me back growing up is I used to be, a C student, and I'd get B's every now and then. And I always thought I just wasn't as smart as other people. And I thought the kids with A's would be the wealthy ones and the entrepreneurs. And then I realized as I got older, it's all bullshit. And in this life, we can accomplish and we can do anything we set out to do. So there's one thing we need, and that's drive.
Well, Tarek, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing that. And as always, I'm excited to see the next chapter of your life unfold on television and over the phone as a friend.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.